Today, inshallah, we'll talk about the Prophet's humbleness, and this is again the series that we started several weeks ago. Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as if you can see him. We're going over the book of Dr. Al Muhammad, as if you can see him. And we covered many of the qualities of the Prophet ﷺ, including his zuhd or asceticism, his bravery, his generosity, his patience. Prior to talking about the qualities, we talked about his religion, his name and lineage, and so on. As we said, that this is sort of a biography versus chronological seerah, a biography of the qualities of the Prophet ﷺ. Today, the Prophet's humbleness, the author here says to be humble is to be modest, self-effacing, unpretentious, and unostentatious. It's to have a low self-estimation of one's importance. That is basically how what humbleness is about. It is to have low self-estimation of your importance, or the right self-estimation. And if you truly have the right self-estimation, you will recognize the amount of your weakness, the amount of your feebleness, the amount of your dependence on Allah, the amount of your poverty, faqr, Allah, your needs for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It really is. It is just the epitome of foolishness and folly to be otherwise, to think otherwise, because look at how a very insignificant virus that you cannot see can completely destroy your strength, your power, and sometimes forever. People who, and this issue needs not just a matter to have information, to stuff your head with information or ayat and hadith without contemplating their meaning, without actually feeling the vibrations, feeling the meanings of the content, and reflecting on your own reality. It is not just about disease or sickness, it is about multitudes of afflictions. Overnight, you can wake up with an affliction that will completely change your life forever. And sometimes people think that they are on top of all things, and it only takes them to have, for instance, an affliction like that is heavyweight affliction, such as having like a handicapped child, for instance. And keep in mind that when you're waiting for a child, when you're expecting, you're not doing anything. You're not making the child. For 9 months, you're just waiting. It's a waiting game, and then you will get what you were destined to get. You have no hand. The child will come out with 10 toes and 10 fingers, possible. Will come out with a different number, possible. Will come out with 4 limbs, possible. Will come out with a different number of limbs, possible. Will come out hearing and seer or capable of seeing, possible. Will come out without them, possible. So, and it just takes that to make you, to give you a life-altering experience that will make you a different person. And it is not a bad idea to be elegant or to sort of well-groomed, to be well-groomed and to take care of your appearance when you walk out of your home, but you can have one life-altering experience that will make you, incapable of all of this. You will wear different colored socks when you walk out of your home because you're basically, all of this has become trivial details for you. So one needs really to recognize this weakness, this human weakness, and one really needs to feel it all the time. No matter how smart you are, no matter how wealthy you are, it can be all taken away from you overnight. It can be all taken away from you in a matter of a few hours. And just look around you. And the thing is that makes people a little bit more prone to humbleness when they grow up is the fact that they have witnessed all of that. They have witnessed much of that and down through life experiences that are difficult. They have seen it in their friends and family, and so on and so forth. We can sit down and recall such experiences. Each and every one of you may know. It may have happened to you personally. It may have happened to someone close by. We all know people who were, just as accomplished or just as smart, and their life has been completely ruined because of overwhelming events. Those things, whenever you encounter them, just sort of behold them for the rest of your life. So don't let them skip your memory. Don't let them skip your memory because they will teach you a good lesson for the rest of your life. Then the author here says people are humble for various reasons. Some they're humble because they truly suffer from low self-esteem. Some people are truly afflicted with having a low self-esteem. They truly think low of themselves. And that is not the humbleness that is praiseworthy. The humbleness that's praiseworthy is to know what you can do, which you will attribute to Allah's favor on you. Look, there's a beautiful discussion that happened between the Rusul, the messengers, and their people. In Surah Ibrahim it says, قالوا إن أنتم, the disbelievers said to the messengers, قالوا إن أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا. They said, you are but people like us, human beings like us. قالوا إن أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا تريدون أن تصدونا عما كان يعبد آباؤنا. You want to divert us away from that which our forefathers worshipped. فأتونا بسلطان مبين. Then bring for us a clear authority on this claim. When they said, you are but people like us, you are nothing but people like us, you are people, bashar, then the messengers, in one sense, they are not like them. In one sense, they are not like them. Yes, they're human beings, but they're not like them. Because there are human beings and there are other greater human beings and better human beings, and the best human beings are the prophets and the messengers. But the messengers were not trapped by this. The messengers answered and said, قالت لهم رسلهم إن نحن إلا بشر مثلكم. Their messengers said to them, we are but human beings like you. So they did not, got trapped into that, trap of the shaitan to answer to defend themselves. They could have said, but we're messengers. You're not. They said, no, you're right. We are but human beings like you. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَمُنُّ عَلَى مَن يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ. But Allah bestows His favor and bounty on whomever He pleases of His servants. On whomever He pleases of His servants. So Allah bestowed this bounty of prophethood or messengership on us, and it is Allah's. So they attributed the favor, they attributed the bounty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But as for ourselves, yes, we're just but human beings, like you. Had they said we're not like you, they would have been correct. But that is not the issue. The issue here is not to take victory for themselves. The issue is to take victory for, to defend the message itself. They still said, وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَمُنُّ عَلَى مَن يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ, but Allah bestows His favor upon whomever He pleases of His people. Because yes, but Allah had given us something that is that He has not given you, which is the messengership. To this extent, yes, you need to be clear on the issue, because otherwise, how could you deliver the message? If you say we're all the same, yes, we're all the same. When it comes to us, we're all the same. However, they attributed the favor of bestowing the messengership onto them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is not our, excellence, although it is because of their excellence that Allah had bestowed the messengership on them. But this is a side issue, that they did not want that side issue to hinder the discussion. But they acknowledged the prophethood, the messengership. And that is why Yusuf alayhi salam acknowledged, Inni hafizun alim, that I am good at keeping record and knowledgeable. I am a good record keeper and knowledgeable in those areas. So low self-esteem is not the antidote of kibr or pride. The antidote of kibr and pride is to recognize your significance within the general context of this existence. Within the general context of this existence, so who are you? Billions of people have existed before you. The planet Earth that you live on is just one of billions of planets that are part of this, these enormous constellations, and all of this is just the lower heavens, and then you will have the upper heavens, and so on and so forth. So if you look at your size, you will really be broken. If you keep on contemplating, if you keep on thinking about the enormity of this existence, it will break you to the extent that will keep you from arrogance and pride. Because some people suffer from low self-esteem, some people want to put on an air of piety, that's why they act humble. And that is a motive that is not wholesome. Because humbleness is not about the act, it's not about ostentation, it's not about show of humbleness. Some people want to be good to people because they just have, again, sometimes humbleness could be a sign of self-respect that may border on pride. Because I should be humble because that is good, because I am better. So I should humble myself because I am better. And that certainly is a cause that is not wholesome. But the humbleness of the Prophet ﷺ is the humbleness of a man who knew the greatness and mightiness of his Lord. The humbleness of one who was shy of his Lord. The one who glorified his Lord in a manner that's befitting of his majesty. Do you remember when we talked about sincerity and we said that the first phase of sincerity is to walk to Allah between التعظيم المظهر والمداناة الحاملة والسرور الباعث, that you continue your walk to Allah in the midst of feelings of distracting glorification and exciting, exciting joy and enticing nearness or closeness. التعظيم المذهل is the issue that is important here, which is the distracting glorification. Distracting glorification means that you are walking towards Allah, and what will make you sincere and what will make you pay attention to no one but Him at the end of the road is that your glorification of Him distracts you from giving importance to anyone but Him, including yourself. So that distracting glorification will prevent you from those fantasies about your greatness or about your skill or about your good qualities or about your wealth, or your distracting glorification of Allah will distract you from those thoughts in the first place. On the next page here, first paragraph, he says, as a result of his strong faith in Allah, the Prophet ﷺ ceased to be impressed by the things that other human beings became impressed with. You know, that distracting glorification will keep you unimpressed by anything. You know, if you truly know who Allah is, you will be unimpressed by anything in this dunya. If you know the magnitude of His majesty and His glory, He's the one who created all of this. And look at human beings, look at the crisis in Japan. Well, you know, this is just again, there is no perfection that human beings can reach. And certainly, we have to be honest, and we have to really commend the people for their dignity and their order and their discipline, because they have handled this quite well. And these are qualities that Islam condones and encourages. But the sheer fact that, you know, a crisis like this, nothing can be, disaster-proof in this dunya. You know, you can't make life affliction or disaster-proof, no matter how advanced you are, no matter how developed you are. And these are, you know, recurring tests. You know, the people, one of the most developed countries in the world, and the people are, you know, hungry, and bridges have been, you know, bridges have collapsed, and electricity has been cut off from enormous parts of the country, and the people went back to no electricity, no communications, not even roads, not even good roads. And there is hunger, and there is starvation, and all of this. So it wouldn't matter now whether you're in Japan or the middle of Africa. It doesn't really matter how developed you are, or developing or undeveloped, or it's all the same. So it says here that the Prophet ﷺ would stand beside an elderly woman, and these are examples of his humbleness. Stand beside an elderly woman and help her. He would visit sick people. He would show mercy and compassion to the poor. He consoled the weak. He played with the children. He joked with his family, and he joked with his companions as well. And he joked with old women as well. He sat on dirt, and he slept on the ground. You can know the character of a person based also on how he treats people below him, because the character of a person can never be determined by how he treats people above him, because there will be so many at stake here that people would be careful. But how people treat people who are below him. You also know the character of the person, and you put that humbleness to the test when it is not only, because some people can be humble because they're just good. Or some people, they are humble because they exchange niceties with people, they reciprocate. niceties with people, and when people are nice to them, they are nice to them. So when the Prophet ﷺ, but the consistency of this humbleness that the Prophet ﷺ exhibited is matchless, because it was not only with the old, it was old and young and male and female and poor and rich. But the test is that it was with gentle and the ignorant. So he was humble with the gentle, extremely humble with the gentle, to the point where it says that a little girl from the girls of Medina would take him from his hand and run away with him to some place to show him something of interest to her. So you can say that yes, nice people tend to be nice, right? But that is not putting the humbleness to the toughest test. To put the humbleness to the toughest test, you need someone who is really venomous and annoying, and then you show humbleness to them. While capable of not showing any humbleness to them. This is the Zayd ibn Sa'na type of story. And there are many stories like this. The Bedouins who used to come to the Prophet ﷺ and hold him and grab him from his rida or upper garment, and many types of stories like this. But of those stories, the story of Zayd ibn Sa'na, who was a Jewish man, and he came to the Prophet ﷺ as Ibn Hibban and Abu Shaykh reported, and he said to him, pay me off. The Prophet ﷺ had borrowed money from him, so he said, pay me off, Muhammad, for you, Bani Abdul Muttalib, the children of Abdul Muttalib, فَأَنْتُمْ يَا بَنِي عَبْدِ الْمُطَّلِبِ قَوْمٌ مُطْلِبٌ. You are delinquent. You children of Abdul Muttalib are delinquent. And the Prophet was sitting in the midst of his Sahaba, and no one was loved and, respected by his Sahaba, by his companions. No king, one at all. Now the Prophet Umar ibn Mas'ud even attested to this in the story of the Hudaybiyah treaty. He said, I have seen kings, multiple kings, and I have not seen anyone who is more respected and revered by his companions than Muhammad is by his companions. So he was sitting in the midst of amongst his companions, and then this man says this to him. So Umar ibn Khattab says to the Prophet ﷺ, let me cut his head off, O you messenger of Allah. And the Prophet ﷺ said, لَقَدْ كُنْتُ وَإِيَّاهُ أَحْوَجَ مِنْكَ إِلَى غَيْرِ هَذَا. We both needed something different from you. كُنْتُ أَحْوَجَ أَن تَأْمُرَنِي بالوفاء وكان أحوج أن تأمره بالرفق. I was in need of you to command me to pay him off. And he was in need of you to command him to be gentle. And then, so Zayd ibn Sa'na, that Jewish man said that I have not heard of any I have not known of any quality of the final prophet except that I experienced it in you, except for this one that remained, and I just came here to test it. أنه لا تزيد شدة الجهل عليه إلا حلما. That شدة الجهل, which means roughness in treating him, or ignorance, or extreme ignorance in treating him, will increase him not except in forbearance, or will increase, will do nothing, will do but increase him in forbearance, will do but increase him in forbearance. And now I experience, and now I see it in you, and then he accepted Islam. So that is putting humbleness to the test. because it is not just about reciprocating nicely. It is not just about looking good. It is not just about good nature, being good natured. It is about true humbleness that is for the sake of Allah and not seeing the importance of yourself. So that's putting humbleness to the test. Prophet ﷺ would always smile when looking at the face of his companions, and he would also say, it's related by Nabi Asim here in Zuhd, verily I am nothing more than a slave of Allah. Of Allah is understood. I am nothing more than a slave. As such, I eat as a slave eats, and I sit down as a slave sits down. ما أنا إلا عبد آكل كما يأكل العبد وأجلس كما يجلس العبد. I am not but a slave. I sit like a slave and I eat like a slave. I eat like a slave and I sit like a slave. So one day a man came to the Prophet ﷺ, and because of the amount of love the Sahaba exhibit and the respect and reverence to the Prophet ﷺ and how the Sahaba talk about him, the man came and he sat, a man from out of town came and sat next to the Prophet ﷺ and started to tremble, out of fear. So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, take it easy on yourself, for indeed I am the son of a woman who would eat, or who used to eat, al-qadid in Mecca. ما أنا إلا ابن امرأة كانت تأكل القديد بظهر مكة. I am nothing but the son of a woman who used to eat qadid. Qadid is like jerky. It's like, a low quality meat. Salted, dried, low quality meat. The Prophet ﷺ also would say to the companions, do not praise me the same way the Christians praised Isa, the son of Mary. When he walked into a gathering, he would sit where the gathering ended. He would not allow people to stand for him. He would not allow people to make room for him, and he would sit with them where the gathering ended. He did not also sit in exclusive gatherings, but he was always in touch with the public. Certainly, he would give privileges to people, but not on basis of their wealth or their status. Like there were privileges given to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud was of the very humble, modest Sahaba, greatest Sahaba, greatest fuqaha of the Sahaba, but he used to be like a shepherd working for little money in Mecca. But Abdullah Rasul, since he was that scholarly, and the Prophet ﷺ had aspirations that he would benefit the Ummah, they used to say, he used to be permitted when we were barred to enter onto the Prophet, talk to the Prophet ﷺ, and to walk into his home and sit with him, so that he learned from the Prophet ﷺ for teaching later. And the Prophet ﷺ also was very humble in accepting the invitation and accepting gifts of any size. He even said, as reported by Bukhari, لو دعيت إلى كراع لأجبت ولو أهديت كراعا لقبلت. And some other reports that if I were to be asked to eat, if I were to be invited to the foot of the sheep, kura is the feet of the sheep. So like a meal of the foot or the feet of the sheep, I would accept, and if I were to be given a gift of that, the foot of the sheep, I would accept. And in fact, a Jewish man invited him to a meal that consisted of khubz wa sanifa. That Prophet ﷺ accepted the invitation of a Jewish man to bread and rancid fat. Bread and rancid fat. Fat that lasted for too long, it became spoiled. And the Prophet ﷺ accepted his invitation and shared food with him. He used to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala he used to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make him live as a poor person, as a needy person. It depends on how we translate miskin, but Allahumma ahyini miskinan wa amitni miskina wa ahshurni fi zumrat al-masakin. Oh Allah, make me live as a needy person, die as a needy person, and resurrect me amongst the needy. It really is important that you be resurrected amongst the needy, and miskana is actually an attitude. It is not the lack of necessarily, but it's an attitude. It is to feel it. It is to feel your weakness, your need for Allah, that you're not better than anyone of His creations. Because to be resurrected amongst the arrogant, how do they get resurrected? Prophet ﷺ said, يحشر المتكبرون يوم القيامة كالذر يطأهم الناس بأقدامهم. يطأهم الناس بأقدامهم. The proud will be resurrected on the day of judgment like small ants. The people will step over them. Because of jaza min jins al-amal, the punishment is congruent with crime. And since they felt too big, they were resurrected too small. And pride is befitting of only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because if you were created, did you really decide on how you will turn out? Did you decide anything when you were being created? You have not. Did you have any power to do anything to yourself? To decide your IQ, to decide your looks, to decide anything, to decide your physique. So if you did not decide anything, how could you be proud? Proud of something that was decided for you, something that was given to you, and something that was decided for you without any interference on your part. So that pride is only befitting of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore He said, الكبرياء ردائي والعظمة إزاري فمن نازعني فيهما خصمته ولا أبالي. That kibriya, which is pride, is my upper garment, or my robe. وَالْعَظَمَةُ إِزَارِي, greatness is my lower garment, and whoever vies against me with the regard, I will break him, and I will have no consideration for him, or no concern about him. I will break him. قَصَمْتُهُ, I will break him. So these are just some quick examples of what he used to do, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He would run errands for his family. He would mend his own shoes. Do you remember the Edward Gibbons and the collapse and the fall of the Roman Empire, and how he said that the simplicity and asceticism of Muhammad despised the pomp of the royalty of the Romans? And how he mentioned some of those examples, how he milked his ewe and he mended his shoes and so on and so forth. He would run errands for his family. He would mend his own shoes. He would sew patches on his clothing. He would sweep the floor of his home. He would milk his sheep. He would cut meat for his family. He would personally serve food to his guests. He would be kind and generous to his guests, not just with food, but also with his pleasant company. He would take turns riding and walking with his travel companion. he would eat barley. He would sometimes walk barefoot. He would sleep in the masjid. He would ride behind another rider so that he takes the less comfortable part of the mount. And among a company of travelers, he would linger behind to stay with the weak and serve them, and to make sure that people do not outpace the weaker, the weak amongst them. They would not walk faster than the weak can amongst the company of travelers. These are all just some of the examples, and these are examples of someone who was capable of living like a king, someone who was revered and respected and honored and loved by his companions more than any king. And he was, by the end of his life, particularly, that last half of his ba'ath, he was in control of Medina. And by the end of his ba'ath, he was almost in control of all Arabia. So he would have been very capable of living like a king, but he continued not to live like a servant. Someone may say, but what about, or someone may ask, what about the Prophet's saying, Ana Sayyid waladi Adam wala fakhr, I am the best of the children of Adam and no boasting. Is this humbleness? This is actually sort of post-humbleness, because this is an important issue too. Do you remember when we said sincerity? Once you pay attention to your sincerity, sincerity will become an obstacle between you and sincerity. That watchfulness over your sincerity will hinder you from reaching sincerity. Because sincerity is to behold Him, Azza wa Jalla, exalted is He, and His actions and attributes. Once you start to behold your own sincerity, then that will be an obstacle between you and consistently beholding Him. So you can trip over your own self. And here you tripped over your sincerity. The same applies here with humbleness. If the station of humbleness becomes your objective, then that station of humbleness kept you from humbleness. Because true humbleness that is reward-worthy, that is praiseworthy, is to see your weakness and your need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everything. Like everything, anything that He bestowed on you, any favor that He bestowed on you, the fact that it can be taken back at any moment makes it not your own doing. Therefore, you should not be proud. It is not your own, you were given this or that. So don't be proud and attribute the bounty to the giver, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is true humbleness. So it is to behold His favor and to not be a captive of that station, because some people are captives of stations. Like you want to train yourself to be humble. It may be in the beginning, it may require some effort. Then it becomes a second nature, and once it becomes a second nature, you're unaware of your humbleness. Keep in mind, if you're aware of your humbleness, you're not humble. Right or wrong? Because if you think you're humble, then you think that you have something that should make you proud, but you are humbling yourself. You think that you're worthy, but you're humble. But so once you're aware of it, once you think of yourself as humble, you're not humble. The whole idea is that, who am I? The whole idea is to not to not behold your importance, to not think of yourself as important. So once you recognize your humbleness, be sure that you're not humble. So like you act humble with some people, who are less fortunate, for instance, less fortunate financially, intellectually, physically, in any way. You act humble. Once you think that you are acting humble, then that is not the first thought that came to your mind. The first thought that came to your mind is that you're better. And then the second is that you're humble. Humble never comes as the first thought to one's mind. Because if you did not think, you will never think of yourself as humble, being kind to your supervisor, right? If you act kindly to your supervisor, do you think of yourself as humble?
You think you're better.
No, you certainly are not thinking about humbleness. When you're talking to your supervisor, you don't say to yourself, well, let me humble myself with this man. Because, So once you thought that you're humbling yourself or that you're being humble, and I should be humble now, that is when you already thought that the person in front of you is less worthy, that you're more important, that you're better. That is, أنا خير منه خلقتني من نار وخلقته من طين. That's, this is at the root of vice and evil. And this is the first sin by which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was disobeyed. Shaitan said, أنا خير منه, I am better than him. When he was commanded to prostrate before Adam, he said, أنا خير منه خلقتني من نار وخلقته من طين. I am better than him, you created me of fire and you created him of mud. So now you have said that to yourself if you think that you're humble. Okay, so keep that in mind, because that is that's something that you have to be aware of. So initially, you may want to practice humbleness. You're not humble until it is a second nature, and you're not recognizing your humbleness, and you're not seeing it anymore. So initially, you will practice it. That's what the Prophet ﷺ said when he said, إِنَّمَا الْعِلْمُ بِالتَّعَلُّمُ وَإِنَّمَا الْحِلْمُ بِالتَّحَلُّمُ. Most certainly, becoming knowledgeable is by seeking knowledge, and attaining forbearance is by practice. Hilm, attaining forbearance, is by practice. Tahallum, to practice forbearance. If you're practicing forbearance, you're not forbearing. You're trying to get yourself there. So you're trying to patient yourself. You're not patient. You're trying to patient yourself. If you try to be humble, you're not humble. You're trying to get there. You're trying to get yourself to actually have humbleness as part of you, as your second nature. So that is an important part. The other important part here is that to be captive of the station, meaning that the station is the goal. No station is the goal. Allah is the goal. Allah is the ultimate objective, and Allah. All of those stations are to get you to Him. Once the station itself becomes between you and Him, and you lock yourself into the station, like you become a servant of the station of humbleness. What does that mean? If it is more pleasing to Allah that you show self-confidence in a particular situation, and you act humble in that situation, like in the situation of war, for instance, in the battlefield, you're not going to act humble. If it is more pleasing to Allah in this particular situation that you don't act humble, then you will not act humble. We're talking about the act, but are you humble? You are humble. But the act itself will be somewhat different. You will be somewhat different. So that is a person that is not a captive of the station of humbleness. Humbleness has become second nature. He does not recognize that he's better than anyone. He does not feel that he's better than anyone. So humbleness will not prevent him from doing the right thing, at the right time. The Prophet ﷺ was the last prophet. Who would have told us about his status if he did not? He is the one who to communicate with us. His status, right? Because there is no one else that can communicate his status. And if Allah wants him to convey this to us, would Allah want him to do that? Would Allah want us to be aware of his status? Well, certainly yes. And then who would convey this? Him alone. So when he says that, to convey this truth from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to us, even though someone may look at it, of his contemporaries, of the munafiqeen, of the kuffar, and say, look what he's saying. But to say it is a proof that he was not a captive of that station. His ultimate goal was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he would do that despite all of what we heard about his humbleness. It would not prevent him from doing the right thing at the right time. Part of it is conveying his own status to his ummah, because no one else would have. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت